Hi, I'm Jessica Pauline. I'm the Assistant Director of Publicity at Princeton University Press. Today I'm joined by Ed Berger, who is the co-author with Mike Starbird of 5 Elements of Effective Thinking, which we'll publish later in 2012. So, my first question always is, why did you write this book?
We wrote this book to allow people to get the most out of their education. So many people today think that, well, I'm done with school, therefore my education is over. And this book is trying to celebrate the reality that our education is never over. But what do you do when you're no longer in school? You no longer have your teachers, your professors, the faculty there, the curriculum. This is a book that gives you action items to tell you how to become your own Socrates, how to be your own teacher, how to get more out of what you are.
So what exactly are the 5 elements of effective thinking?
The 5 elements of effective thinking include the importance of deep understanding, the idea that understanding comes in layers, and wherever you are in the scale and the spectrum of understanding, there's always greater and deeper understanding to go. Everyone thinks sometimes that understanding is an on and off switch, a yes or no proposition, but it's not. So even the greatest minds can think even deeper. And a student that at the very basic level needs to challenge him or herself to actually see that there's greater understanding to come and not be satisfied with a superficial understanding. Then there's this idea of failing, the power of failing. A lot of people talk about how important failing is, but we tell you how to fail. So we give you specific action items that you can do that will guarantee that you will fail. But as a result, it also guarantees a next step, a step toward innovation, a step to a new insight, a step to an epiphany, an aha moment. Then there's the notion of creating questions. If you put yourself in a position where you train yourself to constantly be thinking of questions, whether someone's speaking to you, whether you're at a lecture, whether you're looking at a work of art, whether you're hearing a piece of music, you will actually see things that otherwise you would miss because you have a different inner life experience. All of a sudden you're going deeper. You're forcing yourself to say, gee, what can I ask here? What's going on? What's the core ideas? And all of a sudden you're making the invisible visible. Then there's this notion of the flow of ideas, that every single idea doesn't happen in a vacuum, as so many times people and students see the world. I have to memorize this fact and that fact and that fact and that fact and then reproduce it for a test. Well, by that method, you don't see the sense of the topic. But by seeing that every idea had a predecessor, it came from somewhere, and that every time you see a new idea, it leads to another new idea. And your challenge, when you're faced and given a new idea, is to ask, what can I do now? Where does that lead me? All of a sudden, you become innovative. So those are the 4 elements. And then the 5th one is basically all of them put together. The fact that we can change. The fact that at the core of education is the goal of transforming lives. And by embracing these 4 mindsets, we can, in fact, transform our lives and become more thoughtful, more innovative, more creative, and more provocative thinkers.
And I know that in the book you've developed a scheme to make these particularly memorable and useful in people's lives. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, it's so easy to remember. When Mike and I were working on this book, we were always having trouble memorizing, and we had a top 10 list. So there were 10 of them. And even though Mike and I spoke all over the world on these things and everyone really liked them, sometimes I had trouble memorizing all 10. I couldn't recite all 10. So we broke it down to 5, and then we thought of a great way of remembering it. So all you have to do is remember the classical Greek elements that were thought to be the foundation for everything, which include earth, fire, air, water. And so earth, well, earth is under where you stand. So understanding, rock solid understanding, is represented by earth. Fire is failing, of course. It's scary and no one wants to go into it, but really we should embrace it. Questions sometimes come out of thin air. So air is connected to questions. And then, of course, the flow of ideas is associated with water. Now, there was actually a 5th element in the ancient Greek system of the universe, and that was the quintessential element, which was this unchanging, rock-solid kind of everything. Here, paradoxically, the quintessential element is that we are capable of change. And then by embracing these other 4 elements, we can, in fact, see difference. We can, in fact, transform ourselves. So it's a great way of remembering them. All you have to do is remember earth, fire, air, water, and the quintessential element.
So some people may be surprised to learn that you and your co-author are actually mathematicians by training. Can you explain how the book came out of your mathematics background?
Absolutely. Every single discipline and every single subject that we teach in the academy at any level offers thinking and life lessons. And it's just a matter of how much we want to exploit and celebrate those. So often in the curriculum today, we see syllabi that are so filled with stuff and facts and notation and language and algorithms that the thinking gets buried. So when Mike and I have been trying to put together meaningful educational experiences in mathematics, we realize that for those students that aren't going to become PhD professors, mathematicians, that math itself is an empty promise because you're going to let the quadratic formula go. In fact, many of my students let it go before the final exam. So that's not the life lesson. We began to realize that there's a way of thinking. There's a way of thinking that Mike and I think just as mathematicians, that in fact transcend mathematics and allow us to problem solve. What do you do when you don't know what to do? Well, thinking mathematically, and in that context, thinking in any way, thinking philosophically, thinking anthropologically, so forth, offers answers. And what we did was we took that long body of experience, way too long, of teaching experience that both Mike and I have amassed over these many, many years. We're very, very old. And we put that together and we distilled out the thinking. And we removed the math. So this is not a math book at all, but we've taken the thinking strategies that one can find and realize that in fact they transcend everything and can inform how you look at art, how you look at a piece of literature, how you analyze poetry, how you understand or build a particular piece of software, how you build a building, how you look at a society, how you organize a business. Everything can be moved by embracing these. And so in some sense, it represents part of the core of how to just think. And that's what we try to do.
So your book isn't just for students and people in classrooms. I mean, that's an important part of the audience, but who else do you think will benefit from the book?
Well, certainly any student who wants to get the most out of his or her education will get something out of this. But every single teacher, professor at every level, from kindergarten all the way up through postgraduate, that wants to take their teaching to even a more profound and deeper level than they already have, which for a lot of teachers is difficult to imagine. But still, part of the book is that there's always more for us to grow and learn. Parents that want to offer their children the most out of their education and that value education. Professionals, people that want to innovate more in the workplace, whether it's for them or leaders in business and leaders in the world of commerce, where they say, I want to inspire my team to think more imaginatively and free them to fail and whatnot. And then finally, lifelong learners. People that are saying, you know what, my formal education is over, but I still need to grow. There's more left for me to do. There's more left for me to conquer. Those people will probably enjoy the book as well. So it's a very, very tiny audience. Just every student, just every teacher at all levels, just every professional, and just every lifelong learner. So I'm hoping that, within that limited market, we will do okay.
We'll try our best.
Thank you.
So let's delve into some of the elements specifically. So starting with Earth, understanding. In the book, you have a lot of anecdotes and examples and action items for people. Can you just kind of give us maybe one of your favorite anecdotes of this element at work?
So with understanding, one of my favorite action items is the action item of add the adjective, where you take a look at a scenario, a circumstance, or something physical, and then try to describe it. Just use words to describe it. And that's how you begin to see things that you would have already have missed otherwise, by just trying to articulate what it is that you see, literally see, whether it's an abstract idea or whether it's an actual physical realm that you can look at. By articulating what you see, all of a sudden you see things differently. For example, one of the things we talk about is when the big conflict ended in around 1918, 1919, what did we call that? Well, we called it the Great War, or, even worse, the War to End All Wars. What a dumb title that was, but that's what we called it. Well, what if we called it, back then, World War I? By adding that adjective of World War I, you're providing an opportunity to say, gee, this might be the first of many. And all of a sudden now your mind races and begins to think about things differently. So that's just one simple example of an action item that you can take. Whenever you're seeing a circumstance, force yourself to add an adjective. Even if you think it's silly, mundane, not interesting, it will always uncover something that you would have otherwise missed.
I think you also have a great example in that particular chapter about the development of the shopping cart.
The shopping cart is a great example where you don't think about, gee, where's the history of the shopping cart written down? Well, it's in this book. So if you're a shopping cart connoisseur, this is a must-have book to your collection. But yeah, I mean, before there were shopping carts, people shopped, they would just kind of hold it in their hands and they would carry it around and walk through the very, very small grocery store. It wasn't like a superstore that we have today. And then one day a businessman said, you know what? I bet you that if I can create a device so that it could actually carry more things, I would sell more things. What an obvious, straightforward, simple thing. And what he did was he took basically a chair, he put wheels on the bottom of it, and he affixed a basket to it, and all of a sudden the shopping cart was born. And all of a sudden his sales skyrocketed because people had a place to put the product. So again, we're not offering very deep and profound per se. The consequences are deep and profound. The implications are deep and profound. But in fact, it's very, very straightforward what you have to do. And by embracing the idea of understanding what's the idea here, how do I increase and improve my business model? Well, I need people to buy more things. I need to have them carry more things. Great. And there's the birth of the shopping cart.
All right, so let's move on to the second element, which is perhaps the scariest and the least popular, talking about failure, which is associated with fire in the book.
And that's my favorite, by the way. So that's the most popular in my eyes. I love talking about failure. And every time I speak to groups or companies or schools, that's the one they want to talk about.